Well, good morning, everyone. Don Cramer with Urban Nest Realty with the Cramer Group. Welcome to, can you believe we are actually up to episode 45. I was talking to a colleague of mine today, and he says, you're cranking out all these videos. You need to like count them like all these vlogs you do. So he was curious as to how we were up to and wanted to see. So can you believe since we've launched Coffee with Cramer and Colleen on Facebook here, now we do ship some of these out to YouTube. We're up to episode 45. So cheers to everyone that tunes in, asks some questions, checks these out a little later in the day, a little later in the week. But we appreciate everyone for hanging in there with us. And so with episode 45, it's Wednesday, so we're here with our weekly update. We're actually going to change it up a little bit. Yesterday I was talking about going with the Las Vegas housing market for May. But actually that's going to be tomorrow. Dana Jarvis, who was going to be joining us, had to reschedule. So tomorrow, the good news is I've got the stats all printed out, got some analysis. So you know me in numbers. Never met an Excel spreadsheet I didn't like every once in a while. So we're going to do the short version, the week over week today, and tomorrow we'll do the deep dive into the May numbers and kind of go into what we think is going to kind of happen for the month of June now that we're well underway. So let's dive into the numbers real quick, week over week. So we will throw up here on the screen. This week, we have 5,826 listings available. Those are single-family residences in the Las Vegas Valley. Now, that's just over 2% drop from last week's number of 5,954. And again, this week's with the 5,826 listings, 5,717 are traditional sales. Short sales make up 49 properties, and foreclosures 60 properties. So again, no significant change in the short sales and foreclosures. And again, they represent a very small percentage of our total available residential housing market. Now, under contract, these are the numbers we've been kind of keeping up week over week. And with COVID changing, with the whole COVID during, after, are we after, kind of phase one, phase two, all that good stuff. Just kidding. We are now up again 9.3% over last week's numbers. So we went from 3,220 properties under contract to this week's number of 3,521 properties under contract. Of those, 3,336 are traditional sales, 128 are short sales, and 57 are foreclosures. And I'm going to talk about a little bit of this under contract demand here in just a moment, but I also want to kind of point out a couple of other key elements. So back on market number, those are homes that were under contract or let's say taken off market for a bit that are back on with 159 homes. The other item, which is kind of interesting to see, are price decreases. So this last week, we've only had 465 price decreases week over week. Now, some of that could be part of the growing demand. We were typically seeing price decreases in the 500 properties segment. So to be into the fours is noticeable. So we want to continue to track that. Other item, median sold price of single family homes ticked up to $315,000 from the number of 310 from the previous month's numbers. So again, this is kind of representative of what happened in the month of May. So the median home price going into June now looks to be at $315,000. So we're kind of been bouncing from a high back in March of 319 down to April's number of 310, and we're kind of right in the middle at 315 right now. So we're going to be curious to see how those continue on. Now, with regards to the under contracts coming in, interest rates are really continuing to drive demand. Other key important point is are people going back to work. So we've had 5 weeks now, it looks like, of unemployment starting to tick downwards. Again, they're still at pretty high numbers. I believe we went from 28% from a couple of weeks ago down to, we're now in the 24% range. It's still awfully high, but now that Casinos and hotels are reopening. We've got another batch of them coming online this weekend. The next couple weeks will sort of shake out, okay, how much of our city is going back to work, and what the demand will be on the Las Vegas Strip with regards to business activity. So with the unemployment trending in the right direction, although, hopefully we'd like to continue to see that uptick. The other item is the interest rates remaining low. That demand is still there. So we've had, that's what's been carrying our housing market. We are actually, it would probably be a little bit more on the helpful side if we had some more listings. So going into June, June a year ago, we had more available inventory than we do this year. And we'll talk about those more in our May recap. However, healthy demand is still keeping housing prices up, and we do have enough inventory to where we've got some selections. However, if you're thinking about selling right now, you've got some opportunities to sell this time of the year because there is a decent amount of demand for housing right now. Now, let's move on to the week-over-week numbers across the board. So if we look at it last week, from 6/2 to 6/8, we had 661 new listings. The back on markets, as you see, and price decreases, those are 159 and 465 respectively. Now, this is the other number I'd like to always keep track of. Again, those are under contracts and the rate houses going into under contract. So if you look at those two numbers, the show and no show numbers, we are at 859. So just over the last week, 661 homes go onto the market, while those 661 go in, 859 go into contract. So again, just over 2 weeks, that's a 20. That's a little over, just shy of 200 home difference in demand. So again, we're not adding as many houses into the inventory as they're being sort of basically being taken offline, going into contract, and then ultimately selling. And then last 7 days too, we sold 411 homes across the valley. So that's the weekly change. Again, demand still showing strong from those slides. And then the last item we like to check is what's going on per different price point. So let's take a look at those numbers. So we kind of go from the under 250,000 number. This week, active listings are 638 properties. It's actually down from the previous week's number of 662. Under contracts, we're up to 550. So, and last week's number was 526. So we have a little decrease in inventory, and again, increase in demand for the homes under 250,000. Our core market of 250 to 500,000, we have 3,434 homes active for sale right now in the Las Vegas Valley, or this week, and then that is down from last week's number of 3,508. Not quite 100 properties, but definitely a decent amount. And then our under contract homes increased week over week as well in this price point. So we went from last week's number of 2,251 up to 2,445. So that's kind of the meat of the market and meat of demand. So we added almost 200 properties into contract over the last 7 days in that 250 to 500 range. Now, when we move up, those numbers, the amount of volume drops off significantly, but the numbers are kind of playing a little different story. So let's go up to the 500,000 to 750 segment. This week's number, we're at 892. So we actually added 10 more properties. So we didn't drop in available homes for sale, but under contracts did tick up as well. So we went from 362 last week to 371. So we're kind of keeping pace there in that 500 to 750. So it's kind of that mid-luxury segment. Then as we go up to 750 to a million, that is showing kind of a similar story. So we went from last week's number 318 to 325 active homes for sale. So up 7 units. And then under contract, we went from 101 to 109, so 8 units went into contract. And lastly, those are the homes over $1 million, the luxury segment. Active listings went from 505 to 510, but we actually had a decent uptick from 69 homes last week under contract to 76. So as you can see, even above 500,000, we might be adding some more inventory, but demand is sort of keeping pace and in check, keeping the market in balance. However, when we get down into that core segment, demand is definitely picking up there. And again, interest rates, people going back to work. It was interesting. I was listening to a webinar just before this show, and there's a couple of misnomers out there as to who's buying homes, and there's a lot of discussion saying, well, millennials are not buying properties. 45%, if you look at let's say millennials, Gen X, boomers, and then a little bit of Gen Z, that next group coming on, which is kind of on its early phases. 45% of millennials make up new mortgage applications currently, and that's by the Mortgage Bankers Association of America, or the National Mortgage Bankers Association, NBNA. So, NAMBA. It's those letters. Just gotta move them around. But that key number, 45% of all new mortgages, that's near half, is the millennial generation. They are the biggest buying. They are the largest buying generation right now. Gen X, the group I'm with, we're kind of a small bunch, but we're still scrappy, and we're kind of still at the height of our purchasing power. But also, too, boomers are still buying, but they're actually buying and selling as they're starting to downsize and reassess what they need property wise. So that millennial generation's coming on strong. And what was interesting too was the areas of industry millennials represent. There are 9 key industries, and I'm going to probably kind of swing into this in a future episode as to who's buying and where and why. Of the 9 industries, 7 to almost 8 of them were minimally impacted by COVID-19. So you talk about a large, that large generation segment, 45%, and the majority of, the vast majority of them, 7 out of 9, 8 out of 9 industries were not as impacted with COVID, or employments were not impacted significantly by COVID, is still driving demand. And then Gen X, unfortunately, I don't have those numbers because the focus was on the millennial number, but also boomers, retirement. We've got fixed incomes, things of that nature. They're at the height of their purchasing power. They're at height of equity. They're still moving around and are able to, their COVID effects are different because they're not as a fully employed segment as Gen X and millennial. So that's interesting to see that how our core housing market is moving strong, is showing some pretty good strength. Now, the next few weeks, as I've kind of talked about on previous videos, are really going to kind of tell the tale of our Las Vegas housing market, because it's going to relate to how we put the city back to work. It's great to see the hotels reopening. We're looking forward to the next batch. Right now, a lot of it, people coming in, I think there's some staycationing going on right now. Some people want to get out of the house. Let's go to a hotel and enjoy. And then also, too, groups that are in drive ranges. So Phoenix market a little bit, Southern California, people getting up and out. As they were talking about, too, we're trying to figure out, when does our airport start returning to a major segment, providing visitors to the valley, and hopefully we'll be able to start seeing those numbers soon as well. Anyway, that's what's going on in the weekly housing market update. Love to hear your thoughts, your check marks on those, or if you're getting some data a little differently, do us a favor. Love to hear, not just what you think's going on, and maybe where you're hurt and why. Because you know what, the key is for us to get the news out as accurately as possible. We're in the real estate agent business, So our key is to make sure we've got our finger on the pulse, and that we're providing as much information as possible, and as accurate as possible, and verified as best we can, so you have the best decision, the best ability to make the right decision on buying, selling, or investing in real estate. So that's the weekly update. Again, tomorrow we're going to do the deep dive into May. So on behalf of Colleen Schaefer, Colleen wasn't able to make it today. Actually, I'm en route to go catch up with her in a little while. We've got a new listing coming to the market, so we're getting ready to work on the media package with photography, video, and virtual tours. So cheers to everyone out there. Thanks for tuning in to episode 45 of Coffee with Cramer and Colleen. My name's Don Cramer, and more now than ever, your real estate experience matters. So give us a call if we can help answer any of your questions with regarding real estate. Till next time, have a wonderful day. Take care. Bye-bye.